All right, everyone, welcome back. So, the Buffalo Sabres have fired head coach Don Granato, and this is going to be a little bit different coaching type firing video than I usually do. We're going to go into this a little bit more because I think this is a situation, and this has overall been a situation over the past 13 years, that is concerning. Now, the Sabres have missed the playoffs for 13 straight seasons. I understand the firing of Granato. I get it. In fact, if you ask me, he's probably the person who should be moved in the first place. However, it's a lengthy list of coaches and general managers who have been with this team since they last made the playoffs. It's been a long time, and there's been a lot of people who have come through the system, and it seems like the easiest thing to do is fire the coach, but is it the right thing? That's my question to you guys today. So we're going to go through each coach that has been with this team for as long as they've missed the playoffs. So we'll start with the first coach. It's Lindy Ruff. So Lindy Ruff, prior to this streak starting, he's been in the organization for a little under 20 years, from 1997 to 2013. So about 6 years, or about 14 years, not 6 years, 14 years. He was with the Buffalo Sabres. He went 571, 432, and 162 overall in his coaching career, and obviously he was fired after the second year of missing the playoffs. So I understand. Actually, I think it was midway through the third year, but I understand that Ruff has been in this organization for a long time. He did a lot of good things with Buffalo, so obviously he was let go after being there for a very long time. And it speaks volume, too, to see a coach be on a team for 14 years. That's shocking in today's NHL. You got your intern who came in for a little bit, Ron Rolston. He was only in there from 2013 to 2013, so was in there for a little bit. But he went 19, 26, and 6 when he was with the team overall through that stretch. So again, an interim, not really that big of a surprise there. Obviously, they did not want to stay with him moving forward. So they hired Ted Nolan from 2013 to 2015. He was the coach. So for about 2 years there, he went 40, 87, and 17. That was another really rough stretch. And you can tell that as the coaches move along, the records do get better. But at the same time, the on-ice product has not gotten better. It hasn't. So you move on from Nolan in 2015 to Dan Blisma, who got hired from 2015 to 2017. Blisma obviously had a 68, 73, and 23 record in his time with the Buffalo Sabres. And this is when I started getting into hockey. When Blisma was fired and Phil Housley was hired in 2017, that's when I started watching hockey. That's when I started remembering the Sabres overall. So from 2017 to 2019, Housley was the coach with a 58, 84, and 22 record for obviously not a great stat. I was about to say points, for 92 points or something like that. No, it definitely wasn't. But yeah, another brutal record there, and we're already at 5 coaches since the drought started, including the interim. So yeah, that's brutal when you just look at when you look at it. Like like going through a coach essentially every 2 years has been the general conception for this team. And it continued with Ralph Kruger when he was hired in 2019. From 2019 to 2021, he was this team's coach with a 36, 49, and 12 record. It's been brutal. And I remember in that 2021 season before they fired him and brought in Granato, they were awful. And the thing is, too, is that in the 2020 offseason, they signed Taylor Hall. They had a pretty good core coming along with Jack Eichel and, Kyle. Well, I guess Kyle Pozo was on the team. Dylan Cousins and Sam Reinhart at the time. And then they lose like 18 straight games. It was a really long streak that they lost games. I think it's the longest in NHL history, I think. I remember I looked at it with the Coyotes one, but I think it's the longest in NHL history. That was brutal. So they fire Kruger, and then they bring in Don Granato, who Granato stays from 2021 to 2024 as of today. He went 83, 88, and 21, which is the best record on this board besides Lindy Ruff. Ruff I don't really include in that because obviously he was there for nearly 20 years. So that makes sense that, yeah, obviously. But Granato, 13 years later, is starting to have some solid records and still isn't 500. So that makes me ask the question, is the coach really the problem? And I understand. In the Granato scenario, I understand it because I do think that Granato should have been fired. The team didn't really show any heart this year. They didn't show a whole lot of, like they didn't. The offense dried up. The defense wasn't great, and the goaltending wasn't great either. I think that there's other factors that play too with this. It might not just be just the head coach. There was obviously defensive coaches and power play coaches and goaltending coaches who obviously do play a role in what goes on. But at the same time, you look at this list, this is 7 coaches right here. Or, am I counting that right? 7 coaches that have been with this team since the drought. That's a lot. That's a lot, comparatively speaking. Now, the general managers is not a lot more, but it's still a significant amount when you look at general managers and their tenures throughout. So, the GM that started during the drought was Dan Rieger. I think I said that right. He was from 1997 to 2013, so he was fired probably around the same time as Lindy Ruff. He went to 1 Stanley Cup final in 1999, 1 President's Trophy in 07-08, a conference title, which I think was 99 as well, 2 division titles, and 8 playoff appearances. So he had a pretty good resume, and understandably so. The team started not playing too well, and they let him go. So that makes a lot of sense. At some point, GMs and coaches are going to get let go. It happens with every single coach and GM. So then they bring in Tim Murray, who was the GM from 2014 to 2017, has nothing to show of it. Besides maybe drafting Jack Eichel, there's nothing there. Nothing to show there from Tim Murray and the Sabres. Then they bring in Jason Botterill, and this is when, again, I started becoming a hockey fan, and I remember when the days of when Botterill was the GM, no playoff appearances. Nothing. He did draft some of the players who are a part of this core now. I will say that there are some players who have looked exciting that Botterill did play a factor in drafting. So I give credit to him there. But again, it demonstrates that, still no playoff experience. And now we get to Kevin Adams, who has been here since 2020 to now, no playoffs. And I think Adams has done a better job than Botterill and Murray. I don't know about Rieger because that was way before my time. That was before I was born. But Kevin Adams, I do think, has done a solid job on some fronts, but at the same time, still no playoffs. It's disappointing because when people thought this team maybe would finally get out of the hump this year, they can't seem to do it. It's really unfortunate to see, and my heart goes out to all Sabres fans. It stinks. Without getting into the on-ice product, which is a whole video on its own about the moves that Rieger, Murray, and all of them made about all these moves that they've made the past couple of decades. In fact, at this point, it sucks, and I feel for Sabres fans having to go through this. It's been a long time since they've seen playoffs. Now, the thing is, though, the owners don't seem to care. I mean, on a level, they do seem to contribute a little bit, but I think the Sabres fans, they don't really care. The Pagulas don't show a lot of remorse towards the team and have not shown a lot of help. The thing I've noticed, too, is that they've actually, and this is something I noticed early on, they actually hired a lot of, family friends to run the team. So they weren't hiring guys that have hockey knowledge necessarily. They were hiring guys who are rookies to the game, to the rookies to being GMs, which in some instances it worked. You look at Danny Briere in Philadelphia, that worked. But at the same time, it's risky. It's really risky. So, and you bring in all these guys, and it just shows that they don't have a lot of experience. And I think too, I got to look it up when the Pagulas took over, but it was relatively close to the date that the last time they made the playoffs. So that speaks a lot of volume there too. But I want to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. I understand this is a little bit of a longer video when it comes to coaching type videos. I will be making another video on the Sabres later on in the offseason when we do our 2024 reviews. That will be coming, not probably for another month or two, maybe a month in the future, maybe a little bit less than a month. But with the playoffs starting in 4 days, I got my work cut out for me soon. So regardless, I want to know your guys' thoughts. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.